I think that every pilot remembers the exact moment that they knew that they would learn to fly. I've never believed in love at first sight, but I sure believe in love at first flight. Am I right? Mine was on May 23rd, 2009, sitting in the right seat of a DA-20 at 12 years old on a Young Eagles flight with my local EAA chapter. The pilot pointed at the attitude indicator and said, "Your controls, see if you can keep the little airplane there on the horizon," and he let me fly, or fly. I've let a lot of people fly, you know. But from that moment forward, aviation became my North Star, like it is for many of us. Every choice I made was dictated by my desire to fly. Every dollar I made was going into a flight school fund, and every medical decision, or more importantly, lack of decision, I made was in an effort to keep my record squeaky clean. I had the privilege of earning my initial hours as a teenager, sweating it out in the New England summer heat as a ramp rat for an FBO in northern Massachusetts. I got handed a lot of bits of free advice from the old guys as I was fueling. Things like, "Don't forget, kid, altitude is safety," or "Remember your carb heat this time of year, it'll get you in these old birds." And the classic, "Hey, alcohol ain't a problem until the FAA finds out about it," or "Do what you gotta do, just don't tell the FAA squat about anything." I don't know exactly when I fully grasped the culture of fear and silence that has been fostered in the aviation community, but I don't ever remember not understanding it or not being aware of its presence. Ever since I was a teenage ramp rat, not yet old enough to solo, get my private pilot's license, or vote, I have known that therapy was never an option, that seeking help was never an option. After 2 years of line crew, I decided to pursue a career in engineering rather than aviation, but my love of aviation never died. I went off to college for engineering and tabled my flight training for the time being. By junior year, I was struggling. I had founded a tech startup as a sophomore, and balancing raising VC funds with standard engineering coursework, as well as developing a product for manufacturing, was taking a toll on my sleep quality and my stress levels. And about a year in, I decided to switch from the pill to an IUD, and I almost immediately hit rock bottom. I know many of us in this room have been there, and that's why we're here, but for anyone who hasn't, it's a hopelessness that's like almost impossible to describe. I desperately needed help, and I knew that I needed help, but I just couldn't let go of that part of me that still needed to fly. One of the conversations I remember most distinctly around that time was with my best friend in college, and we were sitting in this crummy basement office of this crummy engineering building talking about whether or not I could or should try going over to university counseling services. "You're protected by HIPAA," he kept arguing. "The FAA will never be able to see any of these notes, just don't tell them. University counseling services isn't connected to any hospital network. Literally no one will ever see that you were there. It's like we're on this little protected island, like what happens on campus stays on campus." And so after a while, he talked me into it. I went over there, I got help, and I got better really quickly. But those notes did get turned over to the FAA, but I'm skipping ahead. 5 years later, everything in my life was going really well. I had graduated from college with my brand spanking new engineering degree, launched my YouTube channel, and was starting to see real traction online. I moved to Los Angeles, connected with the Southern California tail dragger scene, and bought my very own 1946 Cessna 140. A little 85 horsepower dream that I have flown solo coast to coast, Boston to LA, all up and down the West Coast, around Oregon, by the Golden Gate Bridge, over Yosemite, through all the high deserts. I was finally getting to build some of my dream projects, and then my IUD hit its 5-year expiration date. So I went in for a routine visit to get it replaced, and just like that, I hit rock bottom again with no external explanation except for this IUD. For those of you who don't know, an IUD is a form of hormonal birth control. And that's how I realized what had happened to me in college as well. I did a bunch of research on IUDs and realized that there really wasn't that much research, which made me incredibly upset as a woman. But you aren't here to hear me wax poetic on the state of women's health. The TLDR is that I thought about it really long and hard, and I decided that I had worked so hard to build a platform where people listen to me, and so I should use that platform for good. So I made a video about my experiences with my IUDs and how I was treated by my gynecologist, who didn't believe me. And I posted it to my YouTube channel, where it has now been seen by several 100,000 people. I posted that video knowing that being hotline reported was a risk that I was taking, but it was a risk that I was willing to take because I felt that what I needed to say was important enough. And sure enough, about 2 months later, I received that letter from the FAA, the one that we're all really scared of. And thus began my journey through the complicated, expensive, bureaucratic web of the FAA's Aeromedical Division. My first letter required me to send all of my mental health treatment records from my whole life, including those ones from college, my primary care records, all my gynecological records, and a psychiatric evaluation by a HIM psychiatrist, and that psychiatrist needed access to my FAA records and my YouTube channel. And I had 60 days to submit all of this, which is unfortunate because the lead time for a HIM psychiatric appointment is 8 to 10 weeks. Plus, all of my records needed to be released to the psychiatrist first. So that's 2 to 4 weeks per hospital, plus at least another 4 weeks for the FAA to back release them. So my step one was for me to quickly hire an aviation lawyer to write me a letter requesting an extension. So that's the first $2,000 I spent on this process, and that request was rejected. Next was to get all of those records to the psychiatrist and make that appointment. That was the next $4,000. Then about 6 months later, the FAA wrote back that that was inconclusive and I would need to go see a HIM psychologist, a neuropsychologist. Another $4,500, and 6 to 8 months later, my medical was finally denied. And I hired a way better aviation lawyer, actually Ramos Law, who just got this award today. And we spent the next few months crafting an appeal, which has now been submitted to the Federal Air Surgeon for review. All in, I am over $15,000 and 2 years into this process, an amount of money and time that would be absolutely catastrophic and likely career-ending if I flew for a living. And I relied on flying for my income. But through all of this, I have not doubted that speaking up was the right thing to do. Just like I have not doubted that putting out yet another YouTube video, this time in collaboration with PMHC and Long Haul Films, about my experience with the FAA was the right thing to do. Because the more of us who pipe up and share our stories and use our voices, the more we can move the needle towards change. I saw a comment on Facebook, a terrible place to be hanging out, around when we posted our YouTube video saying that, well, they loved the videos and have always loved my engineering videos on my channel. It's a bummer that my channel is relatively small, and so he questioned what kind of impact I could really have. But here's the thing. No one person enacts this kind of change on their own. It takes all of us working together and using our voices to make a difference. I had the great privilege of running into Ann Suh in the lobby, and she thanked me for posting my video and said that several people at the PMHC meeting she was at today felt empowered to speak up and be here this week because they saw me use my voice. To which I responded, that's really funny because I felt empowered to speak up because I saw you use your voice and tell your story. Thank you again. And this is the snowball effect we're working towards. Each of us encouraging just a few more folks to fight alongside of us. To fight for a future where the next little Xyla won't spend her teenage years hiding from medical care. To fight for a future where Connor, the pilot I talked about earlier, never had to spiral into alcoholism and could have gotten help before it was too late. And to fight for a future where our airspace is the safest that it can be. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for having the courage to use your voice for good. Speaking up about mental health is one of the scariest things that a pilot can do, and yet, all of you are here. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you to a man helping lead this charge. At Oshkosh this past summer, I had the great privilege and also luck to stumble upon the Pilot Mental Health Campaign booth, where Chris recognized me as the Cedar Strip canoe builder girl. We got to chatting, and I shared my story with him, and the rest is history. Chris Finlayson is a first officer on the A320 at United Airlines. Prior to that, he was the Minneapolis chief pilot for Endeavor Air, and prior to being chief pilot at Endeavor, he was an ALPA volunteer serving as the security committee chairman and on the CIRP and grievance committees. He's been with PMHC since May of 2024 and has been executive director since this fall. Please join me in welcoming PMHC's executive director, Chris Finlayson.